Part 1. The year was 2187, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for only 3 years. Most alien species still saw Earth as the new kid on the block, barely worth noticing among civilizations that had been exploring space for thousands of years. But Captain Jake Morrison didn't care much about what aliens thought of humanity. He had a job to do. Jake commanded the exploration ship Aurora, a vessel with 48 crew members, all human. They were out near the edge of Council space, far from Earth, doing routine survey work. It was boring most of the time, which was exactly how Jake liked it. Boring meant safe. Boring meant everyone went home at the end of the day. Lieutenant Sophie Grant sat at the communications station, half asleep during her shift. The only sounds on the bridge were the quiet hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the navigation console. Then something changed. A signal came through, faint but clear enough to understand. Sophie sat up straight, her fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress call." Jake looked up from his data pad. "Location?" "Theta Prime. It's a Velan colony about 6 hours away." Sophie played the message over the bridge speakers. The voice that came through spoke in Velan, but the ship's computer translated it instantly. It was a female voice, shaking with fear. "This is Administrator Keela of Theta Prime Colony. We are under attack by Kresh raiders. Our shields are failing. We have no weapons, no defenses. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. There are 12,000 civilians here, including 3,000 children. Please help us." The bridge went silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. He knew about the Valens. They had been the first species to welcome humanity into the Galactic Council. They had shared their farming technology with Earth, helping to end food shortages in the outer colonies. They were good people, peaceful people who wouldn't hurt anyone, and now they were dying. "Sophie, where are the Council peacekeepers?" Jake asked. Sophie checked her screens. "The nearest peacekeeping force is 4 days away. They've already responded to the distress call. They say they're coming as fast as they can, but..." She didn't need to finish. 4 days was too long. The Velans would be dead long before help arrived. Lieutenant Danny Cole spoke up from the helm. "Captain, we could reach them in 6 hours if we push the engines to maximum." Jake thought about the regulations. The Aurora was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had some weapons for self-defense, but nothing like what a real military vessel carried. The Kresh were known raiders, vicious and well-armed. 12 Kresh ships against 1 human exploration vessel. The math didn't look good, but Jake also thought about those 3,000 Velan children, scared and waiting for help that might never come. "How many Kresh ships?" he asked. Sophie checked the long-range scanners. "I count 12 signatures in orbit around Theta Prime. All of them are warships, bigger than us and better armed." Lieutenant Paul Harris, the weapons officer, shook his head. "Captain, we'd be outgunned 12-1. That's not a fight we can win." Jake stood up and walked to the front of the bridge, looking out at the stars. He remembered his first day in the academy back on Earth. The instructor had asked a simple question: "Why do you want to explore space?" Most cadets gave answers about discovery, about adventure, about seeing new worlds. Jake had given a different answer. He said he wanted to make sure that when humans went to the stars, they didn't forget what it meant to be human. That they didn't forget to help people in trouble, even when it was dangerous, even when the smart move was to look the other way. He turned back to his crew. "I'm not going to order anyone into a fight. This isn't our sector. This isn't officially our problem. But those people down there helped us when we were new and confused and didn't know how things worked out here. They were kind to us. And now they need help." Jake activated the ship-wide intercom so everyone on the Aurora could hear him. "All crew, this is the captain. We just picked up a distress call from a Velan colony. They're under attack by Kresh raiders. The Council peacekeepers can't get there in time. We can. But I'm not ordering anyone to risk their life. If you want to object, speak now. We'll take a vote." He waited. The silence stretched for 5 seconds, then 10. Then the responses started coming in. Every single crew member, from the engine room to the medical bay to the cargo hold, said the same thing. "Yes, help them. Go now." Not one person voted to stay away. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. This was why he loved his crew. This was what it meant to be human. "All right then. Danny, plot a course for Theta Prime, maximum speed. Sophie, send a message to the Velans. Tell them help is on the way. Paul, I want a full weapons inventory. Everything we have, even the stuff we're not supposed to have, Paul grinned. You mean the extra armory we keep in Cargo Bay 3? That's exactly what I mean. And while you're at it, start working on a battle plan. We're going to need every advantage we can get. The Aurora changed course, its engines burning bright as it raced toward Theta Prime. In the cargo bay, crew members started pulling out weapons that technically violated their exploration license: railguns, torpedo launchers, combat armor. Jake had always believed in being prepared, even if the Council frowned on it. Sophie worked on analyzing the Kresh ships, trying to find weaknesses. The Kresh were typical raiders. They relied on speed and firepower, hitting soft targets and running before anyone could fight back. Their ships had powerful weapons but weak defenses. They never expected their victims to fight back. That was going to be their mistake. As the Aurora sped through space, Jake gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. Paul brought up tactical displays showing the Kresh formation around Theta Prime. They're in a standard blockade pattern, Paul explained, spreading their fire across the planet's shields, wearing them down slowly. They're not in a hurry because they don't think anyone's coming to help. What about their defenses? Jake asked. Light shields designed to deflect energy weapons. Most Council species use lasers and plasma cannons. The Kresh ships are built to handle that. Jake smiled. But not kinetic weapons. Paul caught on immediately. Right. Most species stopped using bullets and missiles centuries ago. They think kinetic weapons are primitive. They are primitive, Jake agreed. But primitive works. A chunk of metal moving fast enough doesn't care about fancy shields. Sophie, when we drop out of faster-than-light travel, I want you to send a message to the Kresh. Tell them we're here to respond to a distress call, as required by Council law. And if they tell us to leave? Sophie asked. Then we teach them that humans don't abandon friends, no matter what the odds are. The next 6 hours passed intense preparation. The crew checked and rechecked every system. Engineers made sure the engines could handle combat maneuvers. Medical staff prepared the infirmary for casualties. Everyone knew what was coming. Finally, Sophie announced, "We're approaching the Theta Prime system, dropping to normal space in 30 seconds. Jake sat in his command chair and took a deep breath. This was it. One small human ship against 12 Kresh raiders. Impossible odds by anyone's calculation. But Jake had learned something during humanity's long history of warfare. Sometimes the side with the most ships didn't win. Sometimes victory went to the side that was willing to do whatever it took, to fight harder and smarter and meaner than anyone expected. The Kresh were about to learn that lesson the hard way. All hands, battle stations, Jake ordered. Let's go save some friends. The Aurora dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Theta Prime system. Immediately, the tactical screens lit up with red contacts. 12 Kresh warships surrounded the planet like hungry wolves circling their prey. Each ship was larger than the Aurora, bristling with weapons that were currently hammering the colony's shields. Jake could see the shields flickering on the display, growing weaker with each hit. The Valens had maybe an hour left before the shields failed completely. After that, the Kresh would start bombarding the colony directly. 12,000 people would die. Captain, the Kresh are hailing us, Sophie reported from communications. Put them through. The main screen showed a Kresh commander. The alien looked like a cross between a lizard and a wolf, with scales covering most of its body and sharp teeth visible in its mouth. Its eyes were cold and predatory. Human vessel, you are interfering in Kresh Dominion business. Leave immediately or be destroyed. The Kresh commander spoke in a growl, clearly not used to being challenged. Jake leaned back in his chair, trying to look more relaxed than he felt. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Aurora. We're responding to a distress call from Theta Prime, as required by Galactic Council law. You're attacking a civilian colony. That's illegal under about 15 different treaties. The Kresh commander bared its teeth in what might have been a smile. The Council is weak. Their laws mean nothing out here. This is your only warning, human. Leave or die. Jake looked at his crew. Every face showed the same expression. Determination mixed with anger. These Kresh thought they could threaten them? Thought they could murder innocent people and no one would stop them? Here's my counteroffer, Jake said calmly. You leave right now and maybe we don't destroy all 12 of your ships. You've got 30 seconds to decide. The Kresh commander roared with laughter. One small human ship against the might of the Dominion? You're either brave or stupid. I'll enjoy adding your wreckage to the debris field. The screen went black as the Kresh cut the connection. Well, we tried diplomacy, Jake said. Sophie, send a message to the villains. Tell them to keep their shields up and stay in their shelters. Paul, load all torpedo tubes. Danny, prepare for evasive maneuvers. 3 crash ships broke formation and started accelerating toward the Aurora. They came in fast, clearly expecting an easy kill. Their weapons charged up, energy readings spiking on the tactical display. They're targeting us, Paul announced. Weapons lock in 5 seconds. Hold steady, Jake ordered. He watched the range close. The crash ships opened fire at long range, sending bright beams of energy lancing across space. The Aurora's shields flared as the beams hit, but they held. The crash weapons were powerful, but they were designed for stationary targets like planetary shields, not agile ships. Now, Jake said quietly. The Aurora rolled 90 degrees and fired 6 torpedoes in rapid succession. The weapons shot out from the launch tubes, accelerating to incredible speeds. The crash ships tried to evade, but they were used to fighting enemies who gave them warning. Energy weapons traveled at light speed, but you could see them charging up. Torpedoes like these were different. By the time you saw them coming, it was too late. The first crash ship took 2 torpedoes directly amidships. The kinetic warheads punched through its shields like they weren't there, then detonated inside the hull. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion, pieces spinning off into space. The second crash ship managed to dodge a direct hit, but the proximity fuses on the torpedoes worked perfectly. They detonated close to the ship, and the explosion sent thousands of metal fragments flying. The shrapnel tore into the crash vessel's engines. The ship went dark, tumbling through space without power. The third crash ship actually managed to avoid the torpedoes aimed at it. The pilot was good, Jake had to admit, but the evasive maneuver put the ship right in Paul's sights. The Aurora's main railgun fired, sending heavy metal slugs downrange at a fraction of light speed. The rounds hit the crash ship's weapon systems, tearing them apart in a series of small explosions. 15 seconds. 3 crash ships eliminated. Jake saw the exact moment when the remaining 9 crash ships realized they weren't fighting easy prey anymore. Their formation changed from aggressive to defensive. They started grouping together, trying to present a unified front. Sophie, are they calling for help? Jake asked. Trying to, but I'm jamming their long-range communications. They can talk to each other, but they can't reach any other crash forces. Good, keep it that way. Danny, take us in. Right through their formation. The young pilot's hands moved across his controls with practiced ease. Yes, sir. Plotting attack run now. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for years. The Aurora dove toward the planet, heading straight for the clustered crash ships. Danny flew the vessel through 3-dimensional space like he was born to it, twisting and turning through maneuvers that would have knocked most aliens unconscious. Humans could handle more gravity forces than most species. Evolution on a heavy world like Earth had given them stronger bodies and better pressure tolerance. What felt like a normal combat turn to Danny would have killed a crash pilot. The Aurora spun and rolled, always moving, never giving the enemy an easy target. Paul worked his weapon station like a musician playing an instrument. Torpedoes and railgun rounds flew out in a constant stream. Every shot was carefully aimed, targeting weak points and vulnerable systems. Another crash ship exploded when a torpedo found its reactor. Another went dark as its engines were destroyed by railgun fire. The raiders were learning a harsh lesson about humanity. Humans might be new to space, but they had been perfecting warfare for their entire history. Every battle, every war, every conflict on Earth had taught them something. And now all those lessons were being applied against an enemy who thought civilians were easy targets. Captain, 3 more crash ships are requesting to surrender, Sophie reported. Jake thought about it for maybe 2 seconds. The crash had been bombarding defenseless civilians. They had come here to kill children. They deserve no mercy. Tell them their surrender is denied. Tell them they'll get the same mercy they were planning to show the villains. It was harsh, but Jake knew it was necessary. The Crash Dominion operated on fear and strength. If humanity showed mercy now, it would be seen as weakness. But if they showed they could be more ruthless than the raiders themselves, the message would spread. Attack human friends and you don't get to surrender. You don't get to run away. You get destroyed. The battle continued for another hour. The Aurora was relentless, giving the crash no time to regroup or plan. Danny kept the ship moving through attack runs that seemed impossible. Paul kept the weapons firing until the barrels glowed hot. Sophie coordinated everything from communications, feeding targeting data, and managing the shields. Finally, the last crash ship went dark, its engines destroyed and its weapons offline. The orbital space around Theta Prime was filled with debris and disabled hulks. Not a single Kresh vessel was still capable of fighting. Jake slumped back in his chair, suddenly feeling exhausted. Status report. Shields at 30%. Hull integrity is good. Some minor damage to the port side, but nothing critical. No casualties, Paul reported. Scan for survivors in the Kresh ships. Sophie worked her console. I'm detecting life signs in several of them. The disabled ships still have crew alive. Leave them. They've got emergency beacons. Someone will pick them up eventually. Right now, our priority is the colony. Danny, take us down to the surface. The Aurora descended through Theta Prime's atmosphere. As they got closer, the crew could see the damage from the Kresh bombardment. Scorch marks covered buildings where energy beams had struck. Parts of the shield generator facility were damaged. But the colony was intact, and most importantly, the people were alive. The ship landed in the central plaza. As soon as the landing ramp lowered, Velans started pouring out of the shelters. They surrounded the Aurora, their faces showing relief and joy and gratitude. Jake walked down the ramp and was immediately surrounded by aliens wanting to touch his hands, which he had learned was the Velan way of showing thanks. Through the crowd, he saw Administrator Kayla approaching. The gray-furred alien female looked tired but unharmed. Captain Morrison, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You came. You actually came. The Council peacekeepers said they couldn't reach us in time. We thought we were going to die. We were in the area, Jake said simply, uncomfortable with being treated like a hero. Are your people okay? Thanks to you, yes. A few injuries from panic during the bombardment, but no deaths. You saved all of us. Kayla paused, then asked the question that was clearly weighing on her mind. But Captain, there are more Kresh coming. We detected a larger fleet that will arrive in 3 days. What will we do then? Jake looked around at the peaceful Velans, then back at his crew standing by the Aurora. An idea was forming in his mind. A crazy idea, but it might just work. Then we have 3 days to make sure they regret coming here. Administrator Kayla, how would you feel about turning your colony into a fortress? The next 3 days turned Theta Prime colony from a peaceful farming settlement into something the galaxy had never seen before. A fortress defended by pacifists, guided by humans who knew exactly how to fight. Jake gathered his senior officers and Administrator Kayla in the colony's main conference room. He spread out a map of the settlement and the surrounding area on the table. Okay, here's the situation. We've got 3 days before a larger Kresh fleet arrives. Sophie, what are we looking at? Sophie pulled up her scanner data on the wall display. 27 Kresh warships. That's more than twice what we just faced. They'll have learned from the first group's mistakes. They'll be ready for us this time. One of the Velan Council members, an elderly male named Torin, spoke up. Captain Morrison, my people are grateful for what you've done. But perhaps we should evacuate. We cannot win against such numbers. Jake understood the fear in the alien's voice. The Velans were peaceful by nature. They had never fought a war, never even conceived of military tactics. Violence was completely foreign to their culture. With respect, Counselor Torin, evacuation isn't an option. You have 12,000 people here. Where would they go? And even if you could evacuate everyone, the Kresh would just hit another colony. This needs to end here. Kayla placed her hand on the table, a gesture of determination. The captain is right. We've been running from raiders for too long. It's time we learn to protect ourselves. Captain Morrison, what do you need from us? Jake smiled. This was the attitude he needed. First, we need to upgrade your defenses. Chief Engineer Lisa Grant, what can we do with the colony's shield generators? Lisa, a woman in her 30s with oil stains on her uniform, stepped forward. The current shields are designed to handle environmental hazards, not military bombardment. But with the right modifications, we can layer multiple generators together. It'll create a much stronger defense. We'll need help from the Velan engineers, though. You'll have it, Kayla said immediately. Whatever you need. Second, Jake continued, we need weapons. Paul, can we set up defensive emplacements around the colony? The weapons officer nodded. The Aurora carries spare railguns meant for replacement parts. We can mount them on the ground and connect them to a central fire control system. The Velans wouldn't have to aim them directly. They could operate everything from a bunker using computers. Torin looked uncomfortable. You're asking us to kill other beings. No, Jake corrected gently. I'm asking you to defend yourselves. There's a difference. The Kresh are coming here to murder your families. You have the right to stop them. You don't have to enjoy it, but you do have to be willing to do it. The old Velen was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. My grandson is 5 years old. If operating a computer console means he gets to grow up, then I'll do it. That's all I'm asking, Jake said. Now the third part of the plan is the tricky one. We need to create a surprise for the creche when they arrive. Something they won't see coming. He pulled up a display of the orbital space around Theta Prime. The debris from the ships we destroyed is still floating up there. Plus, you've got mining operations in the asteroid belt nearby. We're going to use all of that to build a minefield. Danny looked skeptical. Captain, mines are easy to detect with scanners. Only if you know their mines, Jake said with a grin. We're going to disguise them as debris. The creche will see the wreckage from their first fleet and assume it's just the aftermath of the battle. By the time they realize what they're flying into, it'll be too late. Over the next 3 days, Theta Prime became a hive of activity. Lisa and her engineering team worked around the clock with the Velen engineers. They installed 6 additional shield generators around the colony, positioning them in a pattern that would create overlapping fields of protection. They buried all the power cables deep underground so they couldn't be easily targeted from orbit. Paul and his team set up 12 railgun emplacements in a ring around the main settlement. Each gun was connected to a central fire control bunker that Lisa's team built 50 feet below ground. The Valens might be pacifists, but they were also incredibly intelligent. They learned the automated systems quickly, understanding that they weren't aiming at individual targets, but rather managing a defensive grid. But the most important work happened in orbit. Jake took the Aurora and every mining drone the colony possessed up to the debris field. They worked carefully, collecting pieces of destroyed creche ships and attaching small packages to them. Each package contained conventional explosives and ball bearings. When triggered by proximity sensors, they would detonate and spray shrapnel in all directions. The key, Jake explained to Danny as they worked, is making them look natural. We scatter them in orbital patterns that match the debris from the battle. The creche scanners will see wreckage right where they expect wreckage to be. They'll fly right past without realizing they're entering a minefield. They also collected chunks of asteroid from the nearby belt. Each piece was hollowed out slightly and filled with more explosives. From a distance, they looked like ordinary space rocks that had drifted into orbit. By the end of the second day, they had planted over 3,000 mines in carefully calculated positions around Theta Prime. Any ship trying to reach the planet would have to fly through what looked like a debris field but was actually a death trap. On the third day, Jake called a meeting with the Velen leadership and his crew. Everyone looked exhausted but determined. The creche fleet will be here in about 6 hours, Jake said. We've done everything we can to prepare. But I want to be honest with everyone. We're still outnumbered. The mines will help, but they won't stop all 27 ships. There's going to be a fight, and it's going to be dangerous. Kayla stood up. She looked different from the frightened administrator Jake had first met. There was steel in her eyes now. Captain Morrison, 3 days ago my people would have died without a fight. You've given us a chance. More than that, you've shown us that peace doesn't mean being helpless. Whatever happens today, we're grateful. We're not done yet, Jake said. I want to go over the battle plan one more time. When the creche arrive, they'll probably come in with their standard formation. They'll be confident because of their numbers. That's when we trigger the minefield. He pulled up a tactical display. The mines will break up their formation and cause chaos. While they're dealing with that, the Aurora will attack from an unexpected angle. We'll draw their fire, pull them toward the planet. That's when the railgun emplacements come online. We'll catch them in a crossfire between the ground defenses and the Aurora. Paul added, We've also got a backup plan. The colony's cargo ships are all loaded with explosives. If necessary, we can use them as improvised missiles. One of the Velen engineers raised her hand. Captain, wouldn't it be safer to use the cargo ships as decoys? Make the creche think they're escaping vessels? Jake looked at the young alien with respect. That's actually brilliant. Paul, can we rig the ships to fly on autopilot? Already done, sir. We can launch all 32 of them on preset courses. Perfect. So the creche will see what they think are fleeing civilians. They'll chase them, which will break up their formation even more. And when they catch up, big boom. Danny finished with a grin. The meeting continued for another hour, going over every detail of the plan. Everyone had questions, and Jake answered them as best he could. But there was one question he couldn't answer with certainty. Would it be enough? As the meeting broke up and people headed to their stations, Lisa pulled Jake aside. Sir, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are we doing this? I mean, I know we want to help the Velans, but we could have evacuated our crew and left after the first battle. Nobody would have blamed us. Why stay and risk all our lives? Jake thought about his answer carefully. Because someone has to. The Kresh have been terrorizing colonies for years, and nobody stops them because it's too dangerous. The Council talks about peace and laws, but when the shooting starts, they're never around. If we leave now, the Kresh will just keep doing this. But if we stop them here, if we show the galaxy that humans will fight for our friends no matter what, maybe things change. Lisa nodded slowly. So we're not just defending one colony. We're sending a message. Exactly. We're telling every raider and pirate and bully in the galaxy that Earth protects its friends. And we're telling every peaceful species that they don't have to be victims anymore. That's a lot of pressure, sir. It is. But pressure makes diamonds, as my grandmother used to say. Jake checked his watch. The Kresh will be here soon. Get to engineering and make sure the engines are ready. We're going to need every bit of speed and power we have. As Lisa headed off, Jake walked to the observation deck and looked out at Theta Prime below. The colony looked peaceful from orbit, farmland stretching to the horizon under a blue sky. It was hard to believe that in a few hours this place would become a battlefield. Sophie joined him at the window. Captain, the Valens are all in their positions. They're scared but ready. Good, and our crew? Ready as well. Everyone knows what to do, Jake nodded. He felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 48 human crew members and 12,000 Velan civilians were counting on him to get this right. 27 Kresh warships appeared at the edge of the Theta Prime system, like hunting sharks sensing blood in the water. They were larger than the first group, better armed and clearly ready for a fight. Their formation was tight and professional. These weren't raiders looking for easy prey. These were warriors coming for revenge. On the bridge of the Aurora, Jake watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet approached. His crew was silent, focused on their stations. Everyone knew what was coming. They're scanning the system, Sophie reported, picking up the debris from their first fleet. They're also detecting us. Are they saying anything? Not yet. Just scanning. Wait. Incoming transmission. The main screen activated, showing a Kresh commander who looked older and more scarred than the one Jake had dealt with 3 days ago. This alien had clearly seen many battles. Human vessel Aurora, the Kresh said in a gravelly voice. I am war leader Vrakosh. You destroyed 12 of our ships. You killed Kresh warriors. For this you will die slowly. Jake stood up and faced the screen. War leader Vrakosh, I'm Captain Jake Morrison. Your ships attacked a civilian colony in violation of council law. We defended them. If you leave now, we'll let you go. If you attack, we'll do to you what we did to your first fleet. Vrakosh bared his teeth in a snarl. One small ship threatens the might of 27 warships? You're either insane or stupid. My fleet will crush you, then we will burn the colony until nothing remains. The galaxy will learn what happens to those who oppose the Kresh dominion. Then I guess we're doing this the hard way, Jake said calmly. Sophie, cut the transmission. The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew. Everyone ready? A chorus of affirmatives came back. Danny had his hands on the helm controls. Paul had all weapon systems active. Sophie was monitoring communications and sensors. Down in engineering, Lisa had the engines running at full power. Danny, take us to position Alpha, Jake ordered. Stay behind the moon until I give the word. The Aurora moved silently through space, using Theta Prime's moon as cover. Meanwhile, the Kresh fleet advanced toward the planet in their tight formation. They were confident, expecting an easy victory. Jake watched them enter the debris field. The Kresh scanners were examining the wreckage from the first battle, probably trying to understand what happened. They saw destroyed ships and assumed it was normal battle debris. They flew right past the disguised mines without a second thought. They're in the field, Paul said quietly. All ships are within range of the mines. Wait, Jake ordered. He wanted as many of them as possible inside the trap before springing it. The Kresh fleet continued forward, getting closer to the planet. Closer to the mines now, Jake said. Paul activated the triggers. 3,000 mines detonated simultaneously. The space around the Kresh fleet turned into a storm of explosions and flying shrapnel. Ships that had been in tight formation were suddenly torn apart by the blasts. Metal fragments moving at high speed tore through shields and hulls. 2 Kresh warships exploded completely, their reactors hit by shrapnel. 3 more went dark, their engines destroyed. The remaining ships scattered in panic, their formation broken. Launch the cargo ships, Jake ordered. Down on Theta Prime, 32 cargo vessels lifted off from the colony. They flew on autopilot, programmed to look like they were fleeing the battle. To the Kresh, they looked like escaping civilians. The Kresh are taking the bait, Sophie reported. 8 ships are breaking off to pursue the cargo vessels. Good. Danny, take us out from behind the moon. Full attack speed. Paul, pick your targets and fire at will. The Aurora burst from its hiding place and dove toward the confused Kresh fleet. The human ship moved like a striking snake, fast and deadly. Paul opened fire with everything they had. Torpedoes streaked toward the nearest Kresh ships while the railguns hammered away with metal slugs. A Kresh cruiser tried to turn and fire back, but Danny was already rolling the Aurora out of the way. The enemy's energy beams missed completely. Paul's torpedoes didn't miss. They slammed into the Kresh ship's engines, and the vessel went tumbling through space. Ground defenses are activating, Sophie announced. On Theta Prime's surface, the 12 railgun emplacements came online. The Velan operators, safe in their underground bunker, worked the controls exactly as Paul had taught them. The railguns tracked the Kresh ships automatically, and when they had solid locks, they opened fire. Heavy metal slugs shot up from the planet's surface, crossing hundreds of miles in seconds. 3 Kresh ships were caught completely by surprise as rounds slammed into their hulls from below. The raiders had been focused on the Aurora above them and never expected ground-based weapons. Captain, the cargo ships are reaching the Kresh pursuit group, Danny reported. Jake pulled up that section of the tactical display. 8 Kresh warships had chased what they thought were fleeing civilians. They were closing in, ready to destroy the cargo vessels and everyone they thought was aboard. Detonate them, Jake ordered. Paul triggered the charges. 32 cargo ships exploded simultaneously, each one packed with enough conventional explosives to destroy a building. The Kresh ships were caught in the middle of the blast field. At close range, the explosions were devastating. 4 Kresh warships were destroyed outright. The other 4 were crippled, their shields overloaded and their hulls torn open. In less than 5 minutes, the Kresh fleet had been cut in half. 27 ships had become 12, and most of those 12 were damaged. They're trying to regroup, Sophie said. The remaining ships are forming a defensive sphere around their flagship. Jake studied the tactical display. War leader Vrakosh's flagship was a massive dreadnought, twice the size of the Aurora and bristling with weapons. The other 11 ships were creating a protective screen around it. They're getting smart, Paul observed. They know they can't chase us anymore. They're going to try to turtle up and pound us from a distance. Then we don't let them, Jake said. Danny, plot a course right through their formation. We're going to split them up. The pilot looked at his captain with wide eyes. Sir, that's suicide. Only if they hit us. I'm betting you're a better pilot than they expect. Take us in. Danny took a deep breath and nodded. His hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. The Aurora accelerated toward the clustered Kresh ships, building up to incredible speed. They're locking weapons on us, Sophie warned. All ships firing. The space between the Aurora and the Kresh fleet filled with energy beams. Dozens of weapons fired at once, trying to track the small human ship. But Danny was ready. He threw the Aurora into a series of rolls and loops that would have knocked most aliens unconscious. Humans could handle the gravity forces, but the Kresh couldn't understand how anyone could fly like that. Most of the enemy fire missed completely. A few beams grazed the Aurora's shields, but they held. And then the human ship was in the middle of the Kresh formation. Too close for them to fire without risking hitting their own vessels. Fire everything, Jake ordered. Paul unleashed the Aurora's full arsenal at point-blank range. Torpedoes slammed into 2 Kresh ships, detonating inside their hulls. The railguns fired continuously, tearing into another ship's weapon systems. The Aurora spun through the enemy formation like a tornado, dealing damage everywhere it went. The Kresh tried to respond, but their formation was broken. Ships were scattered across space, unable to provide mutual support. The ground-based railguns kept firing from below, forcing the Kresh to split their attention between threats from above and below. Captain, the flagship is moving, Sophie reported. Vrakosh is coming for us directly. The massive Kresh dreadnought accelerated toward the Aurora. It was so large that it blocked out the stars behind it. Its weapons powered up enough firepower to destroy a city. Danny, get us clear, Jake said. But even as he gave the order, he knew they couldn't outrun the dreadnought forever. Eventually they'd have to face it. Vrakosh's voice came over the communication system. You fight well for prey, human. But this ends now. My ship alone is stronger than your entire fleet. Jake smiled grimly. You know what your problem is, Vrakosh? You keep thinking we're prey. Humans aren't prey. We're the predators you never saw coming. Then prove it, human. Face me in single combat ship to ship. Or are you a coward who only fights from ambush? Jake thought about it. The Kresh commander was trying to bait him into a fight the Aurora couldn't win. But he was also giving Jake exactly what he needed. A one-on-one confrontation while the other Kresh ships were scattered and damaged. All right, Vrakosh. You want to see what humans can do? Come get us. Danny, take us away from the planet. Lead him out of the debris field into clear space. Captain, are you sure about this? Sophie asked quietly. No, Jake admitted. But I've got an idea. It's crazy, but it might work. Paul, how much fuel do we have left? About 60%. Why? Because we're going to use all of it. Lisa, can you hear me down in engineering? The engineer's voice came through the intercom. I'm here, Captain. I need you to be ready to dump all our remaining fuel on my command. Can you do that? There was a pause. Sir, if we dump our fuel, we won't have enough to get home. I know. But if this doesn't work, we won't need to get home. Can you do it? Yes, sir. Standing by. The Aurora raced away from Theta Prime with the Kresh dreadnought in pursuit. 6 months after the Battle of Theta Prime, Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a newly constructed ship. This wasn't the Aurora, though that vessel had been repaired and was serving as a training ship for new crews. This was the Defender, a purpose-built vessel designed specifically for protecting colonies and responding to distress calls. Jake ran his hand along the command chair. The Defender was larger than the Aurora, with better weapons and stronger shields. But more importantly, it represented something new, Earth and the Galactic Council working together, combining human military knowledge with alien technology. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Lieutenant Sophie Grant reported from the communication station. She had stayed with Jake after Theta Prime, turning down several promotions to remain on his crew. Put it through, Jake said. Admiral Karen Stone appeared on the main screen. She was a veteran officer who had commanded ships back when humanity was still confined to the solar system. Commander Morrison, I wanted to give you a status update on the training program. We now have human advisors working with 17 different species. The Velans alone have built defensive systems on 20 colonies. That's good news, Admiral. Any problems? A few. Some species are hesitant to embrace what they see as militarization. They're worried that teaching peaceful people to fight will change who they are. Jake nodded. He had heard similar concerns before. What do you tell them? I tell them what you told the Council. That strength and peace aren't opposites. That being able to defend yourself doesn't mean you have to become aggressive. Most of them come around once they understand that. And the Kresh? Any more incidents? Admiral Stone smiled slightly. That's the interesting part. Kresh raiding activity has dropped by 70% across the entire Outer Rim. It seems your demonstration at Theta Prime convinced them to find easier targets, or rather to realize there are no easy targets anymore. That was the idea, Jake said. Has the Council made any official policy changes? They're working on it. High Counselor Thren has proposed what he's calling the Defensive Alliance Initiative. Any Council member can request assistance in building defenses and training security forces. Earth is leading the program, but other species are contributing too. Jake felt satisfied hearing that. The Battle of Theta Prime hadn't just saved one colony. It had changed how the entire galaxy thought about peace and security. There's one more thing, Admiral Stone continued. We've received another distress call. A mining colony in the Outer Reach sector is being threatened by pirates. They're requesting help and specifically asking if the crew from Theta Prime can respond. Send us the coordinates, Jake said immediately. We'll handle it. After the Admiral signed off, Jake turned to his crew. Most of them were the same people who had fought at Theta Prime. Danny Cole was at the helm, his broken arm long since healed. Lieutenant Paul Harris was at weapons. Lisa Grant was down in engineering. They had all chosen to stay together, forming the core of what Earth Command was calling the Rapid Response Fleet. Looks like we've got work to do, Jake announced. Danny, plot a course for the Outer Reach. Sophie, contact the colony and let them know we're coming. Paul, make sure all weapon systems are ready. Captain, Sophie said, using his old title out of habit. The colony says the pirates gave them an ultimatum. Pay tribute or be destroyed. They have 48 hours left. Then we better hurry. Danny, maximum speed. The Defender jumped to faster than light travel, leaving Centaurus Prime behind. As they traveled, Jake reviewed the information about the colony and the pirates threatening it. The pirates were a mixed group, not as organized as the Crash but still dangerous. They had been operating in the outer reach for years, preying on isolated mining operations. "Sir, I'm getting additional information from the colony," Sophie reported. "They're saying that several other mining operations in the sector have already been destroyed by these pirates. Hundreds of workers killed." Jake felt the familiar anger building in his chest. These pirates thought they could murder innocent people and face no consequences. They were about to learn otherwise. "Paul, I want options for dealing with multiple pirate vessels. Assume they'll be expecting us this time." The weapons officer worked on his tactical plans. "Sir, if they've heard about Theta Prime, they might try to ambush us." "We should be ready for that." "Agreed. Let's run through some combat scenarios before we arrive. I want everyone sharp." Over the next several hours, the crew practiced different battle situations. They ran simulations of fighting while protecting the colony, dealing with hostages, facing ships with superior firepower. By the time they approached the outer reach sector, everyone knew exactly what to do in any situation. "Dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds, Danny announced. The Defender emerged in the mining colony system. Immediately, the sensors picked up multiple contacts. 7 pirate ships were in orbit around the small mining station. The station itself looked damaged, its shields flickering. "They've been bombarding the station," Paul reported. "Shields are at 20%. They won't last much longer." "Hail the pirates," Jake ordered. Sophie opened a channel. After a moment, a scarred face appeared on screen. The alien looked like it was from a dozen different species mixed together, with mismatched features and cold eyes. "Well, well," the pirate captain said with a sneer. "The famous Commander Morrison. We've heard about you. The human who thinks he's a hero." "You're too late, Morrison. This colony belongs to us now." "Not anymore," Jake said calmly. "You have one chance to leave peacefully." "Take it," the pirate laughed. "You're outnumbered 7-1. Your reputation doesn't scare us. We've fought military vessels before. We know all the standard tactics. You're not special." "You're right about one thing," Jake agreed. "We are outnumbered. But you made a mistake. You assumed we'd use standard tactics. Humans don't do standard." He nodded to Paul, who had already locked weapons on the nearest pirate ship. The Defender opened fire before the pirates could react. A spread of torpedoes hit the closest vessel, crippling its engines in seconds. "All ships, attack the human vessel," the pirate captain shouted. The 6 remaining pirate ships opened fire, but the Defender was already moving. Danny threw the ship into a complex series of maneuvers that took them right past the mining station. As they passed, Paul fired a spread of small pods that attached themselves to the station's hull. "What was that?" the pirate captain demanded. "Insurance," Jake replied. "Those pods contain shield generators. Your bombardment just became useless. Now let's talk about your future, or rather your lack of one." The Defender engaged the pirate fleet in a running battle that lasted 20 minutes. The pirates were experienced fighters, but they were used to facing merchant ships and lightly armed freighters. They weren't ready for a purpose-built warship crewed by humans who had trained specifically for this kind of fight. One by one, the pirate ships were disabled or destroyed. When only the captain's ship remained, Jake hailed them again. "Last chance," he said. "Surrender or be destroyed." The pirate captain's sneer was gone, replaced by fear. "You're going to kill us anyway. Everyone says humans don't take prisoners. We take prisoners who deserve mercy," Jake corrected. "Surrender now. Stand trial for your crimes and you might live. Keep fighting and I guarantee you won't. Choose." The pirate captain looked at something off-screen, probably weighing the odds. Finally, he nodded. "We surrender. Don't fire. Paul, keep weapons locked on them. Sophie, contact the colony and let them know they're safe. Then call the council peacekeepers and tell them we have prisoners for them." After the battle, Jake met with the colony administrator, a nervous mining engineer named Trell. The alien couldn't stop thanking Jake and his crew. "Commander, you saved us. We thought we were going to die. The council peacekeepers said they couldn't get here for another week. That's why we're here," Jake said. "The Rapid Response Fleet exists to help colonies exactly like yours. Nobody should have to face pirates or raiders alone. But how can we repay you? We're just a small mining operation. We don't have much," Jake smiled. "You don't owe us anything. But if you want to help, consider joining the Defensive Alliance Initiative. We can teach your people how to protect yourselves. Next time pirates show up, you'll be ready for them." Trell looked uncertain. But we're miners, not soldiers. We don't know anything about fighting. Neither did the Valens before Theta Prime, but they learned, and now their colonies are some of the safest in the galaxy. You can do the same. Over the next few days, Jake and his crew helped the mining colony repair their station and set up basic defenses. They also provided training to volunteers who wanted to learn security procedures. It was the same thing they had done at a dozen other colonies over the past 6 months. But the real change was happening across the galaxy. Word of Theta Prime and subsequent battles had spread. Species that had been victims for generations were starting to stand up for themselves. The Valens were leading the way, but others were following. Even some traditionally peaceful species were learning that there was a difference between seeking war and being prepared to defend your home. One evening, Jake was reviewing reports when Sophie came to find him in his quarters. "Sir, you've got another message." The Aurora and the Kresh dreadnought raced toward each other on a collision course. Every alarm on the human ship was screaming. The tactical display showed both vessels getting closer at incredible speed. "Captain, we're going to hit them in 10 seconds. Danny shouted over the noise. Jake gripped his armrest. "Hold course. Lisa, dump all fuel in 5 seconds. Paul, load every remaining torpedo. Sophie, prepare to send a wide beam transmission." The crew worked frantically. They trusted their captain, but this looked like suicide. The dreadnought filled their entire view now, a wall of metal and weapons bearing down on them. 3 seconds, Danny counted. "Dump fuel now," Jake ordered. Lisa triggered the emergency fuel release. Every drop of remaining fuel in the Aurora's tanks sprayed out behind the ship in a massive cloud. The vapor spread rapidly in the vacuum of space, creating an invisible fog between the two vessels. "Fire torpedoes," Jake commanded. Paul launched all remaining torpedoes into the fuel cloud. The weapon streaked through the vapor and kept going toward the dreadnought. "Brake left, full burn," Jake shouted. Danny threw the Aurora into a hard turn using their last bit of maneuvering thrust. The human ship passed within 100 yards of the dreadnought, so close they could see the individual weapon ports on the Kresh vessel. The dreadnought fired all its weapons at the Aurora. Dozens of energy beams lanced out, but those beams had to pass through the fuel cloud first. Fuel vapor and energy weapons don't mix well. The beams ignited the fuel, creating a massive explosion between the two ships. The blast was enormous, a ball of fire that expanded rapidly in all directions. The shockwave hit the Aurora hard, throwing the ship sideways. Alarms blared as systems overloaded, but the shields held barely, and Danny kept the ship from tumbling out of control. The dreadnought wasn't as lucky. It had flown directly into the explosion. The blast slammed into its forward shields, overloading them instantly. Then the torpedoes that Paul had fired arrived, punching through the weakened defenses. They struck the dreadnought's armored hull and detonated, but the real damage came from something the Kresh hadn't expected. The fuel explosion had heated the area to incredible temperatures. When metal gets that hot, it becomes brittle. The torpedo impacts created cracks in the superheated armor. Those cracks spread rapidly across the hull. "Their armor is failing," Sophie reported, her voice filled with amazement. The dreadnought's entire forward section began to break apart. Internal explosions rippled through the ship as systems failed. The massive vessel, which had seemed invincible moments before, was tearing itself apart. "All ships get clear," Jake ordered, broadcasting to everyone in the system. "That reactor is going critical." The Aurora limped away on emergency power, moving as fast as its damaged engines could manage. Behind them, the Kresh dreadnought's reactor containment failed. The ship exploded in a flash of white light so bright it could be seen from the planet's surface. The shockwave caught the Aurora and threw it spinning. The ship tumbled through space, systems failing one after another. Emergency lights flickered on as main power died. "Everyone okay?" Jake called out. His crew responded one by one, reporting injuries but no deaths. Danny had a broken arm from being thrown against his console. Sophie had a cut on her forehead. But they were alive. "Tactical display," Jake ordered. Sophie got the sensors working again. The display showed the orbital space around Theta Prime. The Kresh dreadnought was gone, nothing left but an expanding cloud of debris. The remaining Kresh ships were scattered and damaged. Several were drifting without power, the others were trying to retreat. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from the Kresh ships," Sophie said. "They're requesting permission to withdraw." Jake thought about it. The Kresh had been beaten thoroughly. 27 ships had been reduced to 5 barely functioning vessels. War leader Vrakosh was dead, his flagship destroyed. The raiders had learned their lesson. Tell them they can leave, Jake said. But give them a message first. Tell them that Earth protects its friends. Tell them that any Kresh ship that attacks a council colony will face the same fate. Tell them to spread the word throughout their entire dominion. Sophie relayed the message. The 5 surviving Kresh ships turned and fled, their engines straining to get away as fast as possible. Jake watched them go on the sensors. Let them run, he said quietly. They'll tell everyone what happened here. The Kresh won't be raiding colonies anymore, at least not for a while. Captain, we're being hailed by the colony, Sophie reported. Administrator Kayla appeared on the main screen. Her face was streaked with tears of joy. Captain Morrison, you did it. You actually defeated all of them. We all did it together, Jake corrected. Your people operated those ground defenses perfectly. Without them, we couldn't have won, Kayla smiled. My people are celebrating. They want to honor you and your crew. But Captain, your ship looks badly damaged. Can you land safely? I think so. Danny, can you get us down to the surface? The pilot checked his controls with his good arm. The landing thrusters are still working. It won't be pretty, but I can do it. Then take us home. The Aurora descended slowly through Theta Prime's atmosphere. The ship was battered and burned, trailing smoke from damaged systems. But it flew on stubbornly, refusing to quit. They landed in the central plaza again, though the touchdown was rougher than before. The landing gear groaned under the weight and one strut collapsed. The Aurora settled to one side with a metallic screech. Well, that's going to need some repair work, Lisa said over the intercom. The crew gathered at the main airlock. They were bruised, exhausted and covered in dirt and blood. But they were alive and they had won. Jake opened the airlock door. Outside, the entire colony had gathered. 12,000 Valens filled the plaza, cheering and celebrating. When they saw Jake and his crew emerge, the noise became deafening. Administrator Keela pushed through the crowd and embraced Jake in the Velan manner, pressing her forehead to his. Thank you. Thank you for giving my people a future. You're welcome, Jake said simply. He didn't know what else to say. He had never been good at accepting gratitude. Over the next few hours, the crew of the Aurora received medical treatment for their injuries. The Valan doctors worked alongside Lisa's medical staff, treating everyone with care. Danny's broken arm was set and placed in a regenerator. Sophie's cut was cleaned and sealed. Jake had bruised ribs and a mild concussion, but he refused to rest until he had checked on every single crew member. That evening, Administrator Keela organized a feast in honor of the human crew. The Valans prepared their finest foods using recipes that had been passed down for generations. The celebration lasted long into the night, with music and dancing and stories. But Jake found himself stepping away from the party, walking to a quiet spot where he could see the Aurora. The ship sat in the plaza like a wounded animal, listing to one side, its hull scorched and dented. But it had carried them through impossible odds and brought them home safe. Sophie found him there watching the ship. Captain, you should be at the party. Everyone wants to thank you. I know. I just needed a moment. Jake was quiet for a few seconds. Sophie, do you think we did the right thing? A lot of Kresh died today. Maybe some of them were just following orders. They were here to kill civilians, sir, children. We gave them a chance to leave and they refused. You did what you had to do. I know, but that doesn't make it easier. Jake sighed. When I joined the exploration service, I thought we'd be out here making first contact with new species, studying planets, maybe finding some interesting rocks. I never expected to fight a war, but you did fight and you won. And because of that, 12,000 people are alive right now. That matters, sir. It does, Jake agreed. He watched as some Valan children approached the Aurora, touching its damaged hull with curiosity and wonder. You know what I think, Sophie? I think the galaxy needed to see what humans can do when we're pushed. Not because we're aggressive or violent, but because we understand something that most species have forgotten. What's that? That peace isn't the absence of violence. It's the presence of people willing to defend it. The Galactic Council has built an amazing civilization, but they forgot that sometimes you have to fight for what's right. We reminded them of that, Sophie nodded. So what happens now? Now we contact Earth Command and the Council. We report what happened here, and then we see if the galaxy wants to learn from us or fear us. The next morning, Jake sent his official report to both Earth Command and the Galactic Council. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He described the battle in detail, including the casualties on both sides. He explained his decisions and took full responsibility for the outcome. The response came faster than he expected. Earth Command promoted him to commander and gave the entire crew medals for valor. But more importantly, the Galactic Council requested a formal meeting. 3 weeks later, Jake stood in the council chambers on Centaurus Prime, the capital world of the galaxy. The chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. All of them were staring at him. High Counselor Thren, the elderly leader of the council, spoke first. Commander Morrison, your actions at Theta Prime have created significant debate among the member species. Some praise your courage, others question your methods. What do you say in your